Thanks for having me. I'll be presenting today about mobile max diff and our experiences at SKIM in executing these. This presentation actually builds on what SKIM has been presenting at the MRMW conference in London as well, where we already went into how we can use conjoint models and complicated models like that on mobile devices, and if we can really do that, if we have the ability to bring these complex models also to mobile. Today's session is a bit different than what we presented last time. We're basically basing it on a case study that we did for Unilever, where we looked into a communication study and brought that to mobile in Vietnam. A bit about myself. I was already introduced. I'm looking into expanding for SKIM into Asia. We already do quite a lot of business in Asia now, so expanding and opening office here would really help us to solidify that as well. For those of you who don't know SKIM, we're really an expert in choice modeling and max diff and conjoint models, etc. Use that to do pricing and portfolio management studies, communication studies, innovation studies, etc. to really test out new products that are being launched in the market. So a case study that we did based on a study for Unilever. Unilever, of course, is a major corporation that has a lot of brands in the market, and especially for Asia, they use all of these brands to target specific target groups in the market. Asia is not just a huge market in terms of the potential of its size, but it's also huge in its diversity and its diversity of countries and also specific target groups of people in the market. So when you look at a brand like Unilever, they have a lot of different brands in their portfolio that they use to target these different kinds of target groups. Think of Ben & Jerry's, for instance. It's really targeted at more higher income levels, probably more often at the urban population in terms of their target groups. When you look at a brand like Omo, which I'll be talking about more today, if you look at a hand wash product that they're offering for people as a laundry detergent, it's more focused on rural areas, people with lower income levels. And we need to make sure that you can position the product and position the brand to really target those people effectively. So when we look at these different target groups, there's different ways of communicating with them. If we look at the urban or higher level of income groups, these are already online. We communicate with them online. They're used to communicating online and shopping online and talking to brands, interacting online and with each other. So that's what we do as well with an online survey. It's pretty easy for us. When we look at maybe less developed areas and target markets and target groups, you see that people in the rural areas, they're not so online yet. They're not so involved in getting online and talking to a screen, interacting with your brand that way. So we often do KP studies, like central location, or recruit from door to door, etc. We really go there face to face. That means we also need to interact with them in that way. So great, we have all these people and we can talk to them in certain ways that we're used to and that they're used to, so we can target specific target groups and do studies with them and understand what they really need, what they really want to sell our products and our brands to them. So where does mobile come in? First of all, let's start with the bad stuff. It's a threat. There's people that we've been used to communicating with online, on their desktop, on their laptop, and they were sitting behind their computer screen filling out their questionnaires for us. And a lot of them actually are starting to move away from that laptop and that PC. Maybe they don't want to sit at home behind their PC so much anymore, and they're just cutting that wire for that fixed internet connection, and they're becoming mobile only. These people who used to have their desktop at home. That means these people, we won't be able to reach them anymore if we don't change the way we ask them questions and we do our surveys. Basically, we'd lose our representativeness and we'd lose specific target groups and target markets that might be very important to our brand, like Unilever. On the other hand, on a more positive note, we see an opportunity, of course. There's a lot of people that never had a fixed internet connection, never had a laptop or a desktop, were never able to play World of Warcraft online. These people are now starting to get smartphones and other feature phones to access the internet, and that's their first experience with the web and with internet. We might not be able to reach them with our current interview methods, but they will present an opportunity of increased reach, more flexibility, and make it easier for us to reach them and talk to them and get their insights as well when we want to position a product or a brand. But where are we now exactly in that development, and especially where are we here in Asia? I think we all agree that reach of mobile is increasing very rapidly, and we see that's a trend, and we all try to prepare for that. And we try to look at what the opportunities and possibilities are by means of mobile. We also see that there's a lot of pressure to decrease the time of insights, and that's possible for us if we can really use this reach of mobile devices. But where exactly are we in terms of that reach? Can we really promise that faster time to insight in all of our markets here in Asia? Or is that only for a specific subset of markets? How does that compare to what we've seen in Europe, for instance, or the US? So let's take a case study here of the Omo brand, a hand wash detergent that we'd want to sell, we want to position to these lower income families in rural areas. What do we need to say to really sell this brand, to really sell this product? What do you need to say to drive uptake for consumers and make this product as relevant as we possibly can? That's a big question. It's a typical question, of course, in communication studies. What we've done here in the past and also recently is from a KP study, central location, we do a survey on a laptop, and we have someone there to guide someone through the steps of the interview. We do that on a laptop with the max diff methodology, where we have different kinds of statements and claims that we can talk about as a brand and see what resonates well and what doesn't. We also have a lot of room to ask people for other things about what they prefer in terms of laundry detergents, why they like a specific claim better than another one, or other things about their attitudes towards washing. We have 20 minutes or more, it's no problem for us. Also, we have a lot of different choice tasks, so we can expose people to a lot of different kinds of communication to make trade-offs and ask what their preferences are. It's compared it to a mobile survey, and we've done that as well. We've tried to basically replicate the same study, but we know that we cannot just copy-paste and use the same study design on mobile. On mobile, you're competing for people's attention. Attention span is much shorter, so we want to keep it as short and as snappy as possible. Less distraction, so to say. What we've done here is we've drastically reduced the interview length, and we've only used 3 different choice tasks in which consumers, give their opinion on different kinds of messages. Why 3? That's basically what we've looked into in also our previous experiences at the MRMW conference in the UK, where we presented. With 3 choice tests, it's a very bare minimum that you need to get robust results at a single respondent level. Any less is simply not doable. Actually, it may be preferable in some cases when you have a lot of statements to evaluate to go a little bit above that. There's still a lot of fine-tuning that we can do here, but at least we've agreed that 3 is the minimum for us to look at. Of course, there's a lot of other differences when we look at the setup between a KP and a mobile survey. Simply in terms of setup and logistics, when we look at a KP study, we would typically brief an agency, they would install the survey on a laptop, and they would brief the interviewer would go with a van and travel to the location, and then they would interview the people, and the people would put it on the laptop, and they'd send the data files to us. Then we accumulate the data, and then we can actually get started on the analysis. This would typically take 3 weeks. This is not surprising. It's quite a hassle. And of course, it costs quite a bit of money to send all those people out there. Now, what we found with the mobile is it's much more similar to what we're used to in regular online surveys. We brief the agency, they send it out. Respondents answer the questionnaires online, and it's directly online, so we can get that data immediately and start analyzing. And that makes it a lot easier. It also makes it cheaper for us, and it means we can do it in a week where it used to take 3 weeks, for instance. Note that we've assumed here that we need more people. We need to recruit more people because our surveys online, on mobile are much shorter than the ones we used to take. So to be able to get the same kind of reliability, to get the same amount of insight, we need to at least double our sample sizes here. Even then, though, we ended up cheaper than with the whole logistics of the KP. We have 3 different claims. These are not the claims that we tested in real life, of course, for Omo, but washes faster, washes whiter, and washes cleaner. When we look at the results of our KP study, this would typically be what it looks like. We have very strong preference for washes faster, and we can rank and say what's the most important thing for Omo to communicate about their laundry detergent to target this rural market. Here's the bad news. On the mobile, it looks very different, actually. If there are very different preferences in our top 3 or top 5, some elements still remained consistent in terms of what people preferred, but there are basically major differences. So what does that mean? It means that if we would only do a mobile survey for OMO instead of our KP, we would have given different recommendations of what the optimal communication is for them to position their brand and their product. So where does these differences come from? First of all, let me clarify. On both occasions, we had sufficient sample sizes. We had robust results internally within each of the samples, within each of the surveys. So we can say that there is really a difference between the two. When we look at open-ended feedback, for instance, on the claims, we see that the reasons why people prefer one claim over the other, that doesn't differ. It's just that the amounts and the numbers of people that have specific preferences differ between the different surveys. So where do the differences come from? Actually, there's two potential answers here. One is our sampling, and you'll see in a minute that there's definitely something going on there. And one is that people would answer questions differently on a mobile versus on a laptop or other device. So let's look a bit into our sampling. Basically, we had very major differences in the sample between the KP and the mobile study. And take into account, this is within a frame of reference where we're looking at women who do their laundry by hand wash and use a powder detergent. So we're pretty specific in the kind of people we want to talk to here. And still within those criteria, we get very different samples when we look at people that have a smartphone that we can use this online max diff with, or people that don't, and that we use a regular KP method. For instance, when we look at the amount of single ladies on the mobile, that's 65%. On the KP, we had a much lower percentage of singles in our sample and a lot more in a relationship married, with, for instance, with children. Also in terms of education, very big differences here. We see in mobile we had 70% with a graduate level degree or above, which was much lower in KP. And when we look at the age, and this is the biggest difference actually, over 80% in our mobile sample was under the age of 30. So of course, yes, these are big differences. These are probably going to lead to differences in the results between our KP and our mobile survey. Interestingly, when we looked at income, it didn't differ so much. But of course, if you dig a little bit deeper, this makes sense. If you're under 30 and have a very high education and you're single, the same level of income as a full household that, with children and that are above 30 and have a lower education, you'd still have a much higher purchasing power if you're the mobile respondent that we talked to here. So absolute terms, it might not differ. In terms of your feeling of what you can spend, there may be still big differences here. So I try to isolate the effective sample and say, what if we could say that the two samples are the same? And do we still see differences? When we tried to isolate it, first we looked at only single women. The preferences in our mobile study did not match the preferences we saw in our KP study. Same with level of education. If we only looked at the graduates within both samples, their preference didn't match. And in fact, it's not very surprising because even if you look only at people under 30 in both samples, they still differ on a lot of other characteristics. They still differ in their level of education. They still differ in their marital status, etc. So what we really want to do is create two groups that are exactly the same for both samples and see if then there's still a difference. This is actually where we get into trouble because in this case, when we look at single women that are highly educated and under the age of 30, we have a lot of those in our mobile sample. They're easy to find and we know what they want in terms of the claims. However, when we tried to compare that to our other survey, to the KP, to the central location, we hardly had any of these people in our sample. And that's actually the biggest problem. So at this moment here, we can't even compare if we have an effect from the interview method or not. But we have seen that at least there's a very big discrepancy in these samples. Even when you're setting criteria of the kind of people you want to talk to, you make sure that they are female, you make sure that they do their laundry by hand wash, you still get very different subgroups within this sample. You might say, why didn't we use more quota on this? Well, in our case, we used the regular panel for our mobile survey. We weren't able to get more people in the higher age categories than this. Kind of within our timeline, we depleted our sample. This is it. This is what we could get in Vietnam in this case. So where are we? Maybe for Vietnam, we're not there yet. Our reach is really not that high in terms of the people we can reach with a smartphone. Now, there may be other methods with other types of phones. We're really going to look into other partnerships in developing this, for instance, with on-device. I love what you guys are doing to try to increase that reach, to get to the people, at least those that do have data-enabled phones in their possession. But it doesn't really hold up to what we've seen with our experiences in Europe, for instance, where we did see that you are able to get very similar samples on your mobile versus on traditional online or other approaches. And in this case, in Europe, for instance, we did see that we get very similar results when we did a conjoint comparison between different countries. So it is possible. To us, it seems very unlikely that just the formatting of using a smartphone instead of a device like a tablet, or a laptop or a PC is responsible for that difference that we see in preferences here. So concluding then, what do we know? We know that it's technically possible to translate these max diff studies or even conjoint studies to a mobile device. We know that there are some limitations. We know that we want to limit the number of choice tasks, but with larger sample sizes, we can still get reliable models in both cases. So we're pretty confident there. But you can't always reach your target group with mobile at the moment. There's definitely something to look out for in different countries in the region. I would expect that in Singapore here, it's not a problem to reach the target groups of the people that you want to talk to, but maybe in Vietnam that's not the same case. If the target group for your brand are young, highly educated singles, then even in Vietnam you wouldn't have a problem to talk to the right people. So basically, before you do a mobile study, before you want to translate your max diff or your conjoint or any kind of study to a mobile app, make sure that you can really talk to the right people in that country. Know your market, know your target segment for your brand, and know that you can talk to the right people or not in that country and in that market. If you have any questions, me and my colleague Mini will be here both today and tomorrow, or you can of course put me on the spot now.
Quick question on when you're saying it's not comparable, when we look at the two sort of results, they're kind of, you don't know whether one is correct or two is correct. Is there a way, because you're doing three scenarios in case of, 3 screens in case of mobile, whereas you're doing 12 iterations in case of CAPI. Did you try and cut the data in the CAPI with 3 screens as well and compare? Because, my understanding on conjoint is as you reduce amount of scenarios you're showing to the respondent, quality of data improves. But also the initial 1 or 2 scenarios, you can go wrong because respondent did not really understand what is happening. He's kind of like, you need to give him 1 or 2 to practice, and then after that, data improves, and then again it goes bad towards the end when you've shown me too many screens, I can't keep on answering this, therefore I'll give you something which is illogical.
We see that within mobile, we don't have that much room to let people get used to and warm up to the choice task, so we didn't do it there. Within KP, I would have to talk to some of my colleagues to see how the results there would hold up. But within KP, we'd be very much limited in the sample size that we have there. So I don't think we'd even be able to get a very robust model on the data we have for this study, at least, on only KP for the first 3 choice tasks. Because you need to increase that sample size to be able to get good results at the aggregate level. Yeah. In this case, our KP sample was considerably smaller.
And with the 3 choice tasks, you can't do any individual level modeling. You can only do macro modeling.
So if I understand correctly, with the 3 choice tasks, we can only look at the aggregate market level in terms of preferences. That's true. If we look at sample sizes of up to maybe 400 or a bit less, we could only look at aggregate market data. We're actually currently looking into how much we would really need to get also accurate results at a segment level within that aggregate level data. So far, though, it's a bit of a struggle because you only have 3 observations for each respondent. If you're looking at different segments, you need very large sample sizes for each individual segment to be able to get robust results at a segment level.
You said that in some cases you can't reach the sample with just mobile, but you can turn that round and say you can only reach that sample with mobile. And we see this all the time now with CATI, has to use mobile to ring people up. You would not have got those single women on a high income with education if you just use CAPI. So it works both ways. If you want a full sample, there is no single source in these markets. You actually need to go hybrid.
I know in some cases you would be right that you would need this mobile to get to these people that are now mobile only. That's correct.
Because there are lots of people that do not go to a central location, lots of people who do not answer the landline, people who do not have a landline, and all these sorts of things.
Yeah, that's correct.
I've looked at panels in China, and we tested 3 different panels, got completely different answers. So how are you comfortable that you have the right panel?
We want to make sure that we have the right people that we're talking to and looking for partners to help us to reach these people. Also hard to reach target groups on mobile. We use WNS in this case.
So basically what you've said is that, you know, there are some limitations in a way, and sampling does come in way when you're looking at approaches like mobile max-diff. But there was a question about 3 choice tasks. Is that a big limitation why clients don't want to get on board? Because we, of course, have a long laundry list of attributes every time we want to go to the market, and we want segmented data. So is that a limitation why you possibly don't see that many clients using such approaches and taking them onto mobile?
At the moment, for us at least, it's that most clients don't really see what the benefit is of the mobile. We're not able to really get the most out of a mobile approach, such as situation-based or location-based interviewing, where we do a max diff based on a specific situation or location that you're into. That's actually something we're looking into now together with Vodafone in the Netherlands, to see if we can really intercept someone at a specific location at a store, and then the strength of mobile really comes forward in a different situation. And then the fact that you can only ask 3 choice tasks, that's not the main issue, because you have something that you're getting back for that that's even more valuable.